Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking a look at a team that I went on an immediate 8-game win streak with, featuring what I believe to be the best current Ultra League core breaker, and that is Golisopod. Golisopod is a bug and water type Pokemon with the moveset of Shadow Claw, Aerial Ace, and Liquidation. Now, why Golisopod is good right now is due to the popular cores that exist right now. It's able to break the Annihilate for Alligator core, which very few things can do. On top of that, it can beat Dragonite in the Zero Shield, as well as picking up nice wins against Poliwrath. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And right off the bat, one of our targets has been acquired, Golisopod versus Annihilate. They save switch into Cresselia, the opponent not having an amazing response to the Golisopod. I'm going to fire off that Liquidation, fishing for a debuff, and then I can send in Greedent to absorb energy. Greedent does great in this matchup. The back two Pokemon not only do help support Golisopod in its weakness to Electric, but they're also on the bulkier side of things as well. So like in this instance, when an opponent has an energy lead, it's very nice to be able to just send in Greedent. I just watch them throw charge move after charge move, and it just does not matter because Greedent is massively bulky. And the nice thing here is, at least at the time of recording, the meta as a whole is very, very soft to Golisopod, so you'll often find yourself winning the majority of leads. The Grass Knot will connect, switch timers up, they send in Annihilate, I can fire off the Crunch, and then just bring back in the Golisopod. Golisopod is going to farm up, go for the Aerial Ace, and that is charge attack priority. Honestly, even if it's a Shadow Ball, the Shadow Ball is survivable, so after thinking about it, I'm going to decide to just let this through. Annihilate goes for a Night Slash bait, and that works out great for me. This is short of a Shadow Ball. This is only going to be the Night Slash, so I do not have to worry about it. Again, Golisopod able to tank that. I'm going to look to farm up until just before the back-to-back, and fire off the Aerial Ace to win charge attack priority. Aerial Ace is going to pick up the knockout. In the back, it's Tapu Fini. And even though my final Pokemon is Shadow Gliscor, this game is just a win. The Aerial Ace will do a little bit of chip damage, and now I can bring in my Gliscor. And on my Gliscor, you may notice I'm not running Night Slash, and that's very intentional. Aerial Ace is a better move and also gets same type attack bonus, so you can actually deal some pretty consistent damage. Here, I massively overfarm to avoid a catch, and my opponent reads me like a book with a perfect catch. But again, even though they caught, it's not going to impact the outcome of this game, because I have Aerial Ace. As opposed to if I was Night Slash Earthquake, I would need to land an Earthquake to win this game. I have Aerial Ace, so I can just spam out Aerial Aces, and the Aerial Aces are just going to basically run them out of HP here. Gets them very low, I can switch to Golisopod, get the Shadow Claw down, and take the win. We move to the next match, Golisopod versus Shadow Dragonite, and funnily enough, this is the matchup that actually really made me consider Golisopod. I was running a Shadow Dragonite lead team, led into a trainer who was using Golisopod, and the Golisopod won the Zeros, and I was shocked, because obviously a bug type has no business winning the Zeros versus a flying type. And that's when I looked into the matchups more, realized that I think it's basically just the core breaker that is needed right now. If my opponent shields, I'm not going to let them farm me down. I'm losing switch anyway, so there's no point in me just giving them extra farm. So I'm going to aggressively switch into Gliscor, and my opponent is going to respond with Swampert. This is fine. Hydro does not KO, even though I am the Shadow Gliscor. I'm going to be able to fire off this Earthquake, and this Earthquake is going to do a ton of damage if it lands, which it does. And now I have an interesting choice. Mudshotting down, not the easiest thing to do, so I decide I'm going to shield and just go for a Wing Attack down. And I do barely get that Wing Attack down. In the back, they have a Talonflame, and unfortunately their fast move gets denied. The good news is their fast move getting denied won't impact the game because I'm not able to get to a second charge move. So all that happens was they took 2 extra Wing Attacks, which in the grand scheme of things is not going to have an impact on the result of the match. They overfarm to throw on 4, but that does give me a free Mud Shot, and giving free energy to Greedent, usually not going to be a recipe for success. The Body Slam will connect. At this point, they are into the red health, which means they're below 25% HP. So this game is just over. The Body Slam will pick up the knockout. They're trying to win it with Dragonite, but unfortunately, Dragonite did not switch out with a move, and they would have had to have a move banked to win this game and be able to double up. They can get very close to the double up here, so they're very close to their next move, but unfortunately for them, Greedent just has too much energy, able to make the slam, knock out the Dragonite, and honestly, despite a lead that looks rough on paper, we're able to take that win. Here's an amazing lead though. Golisopod versus Shadow Swampert. Shadow Swampert completely walled here. Hydro Cannon, Earthquake. Neither one is going to be able to hit for even neutral damage. I'm gonna look to farm up and connect with the liquidation. Liquidation does a lot. It's not enough to allow me to farm down, but it does a decent amount. I get the defense drop, which is a decently low chance, 30%, but again, still can't farm down, so I'm just gonna look to farm up. I could have farmed up a little bit extra, but I wanted to keep myself as healthy as I possibly can in case I need to make a move. In comes a Shadow Charizard. I'm unable to make the liquidation. Let's see, how good is their counting? And they did not know that I was short. In comes Gliscor after a little bit of lag. They have a ton of energy. They're probably going to bait me, but I will shield. And there's the bait. Shadow Charizards love to bait. I overfarm too much, and I accidentally play to a CMP tie that I do not win on the Blast Burn. The good news for me is that once an Aerial Ace lands, I could just farm them down before they're able to make their next move. They're actually going to switch out, and in the back, it is Talonflame. So we're going to see the double fire flying team from my opponent. I'm going to throw one wing attack and switch. And that is a very important timing distinction because I want to be able to potentially make an Aerial Ace versus the Talonflame later. They go for the Flame Charge, trying to buff up their damage, and I'm going to start spamming out these body slams. Greedent, in addition to being very bulky, just is absolutely tremendous at spamming out these moves. The body slam will get the shield. Again, a little bit of lag there. The game state was not amazing today. I really hope that they are able to improve it going forward. They're going to Flame Charge. That's going to allow me to make the Aerial Ace, and only because I did the one wing attack and switch earlier. Otherwise, it would have been a CMP tie. In comes the Charizard. Charizard is not making the move, and the game, again, will end in victory. Tough lead in the next match, Gliscor versus my Golisopod. But the interesting thing here is that this matchup actually flips if they're running Night Slash, and they are. Them being on Night Slash means that they do not have significant charge move pressure. So I can actually tank the next Night Slash, as I do actually get a Liquidation debuff, and this next Liquidation with the debuff is just purely going to be able to KO. So I'm going to farm up, go for the Liquidation. They catch onto a Jellicent, but this is very fine. I can stay in with the Golisopod. I'm going to rebank the Liquidation for later, bring in Greedent, and Greedent is so good at shutting down Jellicent. I know this is a Golisopod feature, and Golisopod is able to win a tremendous amount of leads right now, but I really think that Greedent is kind of just the goated pairing for Golisopod, because if they have the Electrics, Greedent with Mudshot is very good at shutting down most of the Electrics, and it's a very nice get out of jail free card, just purely in terms of having a ridiculous amount of bulk. I get a crunch debuff there, so my debuff luck during these sets was pretty good. They're going to send in Gliscor, and Gliscor is going to be met with the Body Slam. Body Slam should two-shot here. My opponent, if they Night Slash, it's not going to KO. Aerial Ace would knock out here, but they're running Night Slash. Another reason why I think Aerial Ace is better on Gliscor, because Aerial Ace actually gives you a decent move as your bait move, whereas that doesn't KO. I get to knock out the Gliscor. They can't bring in the Jellicent here. They're forced to bring in their third. Their third is Cresselia, and now I get to send in the Gliscor. This is a situation where Night Slash would be slightly preferred, but Gliscor still does fine here even without it. They're going to go for the Moonblast. I'm looking to farm up and make it to the Earthquake. I'm not baiting, I'm just going straight for the Earthquake. Opponent will elect to commit a shield. One thing I will have to watch for is a potential catch attempt. Their clock will be up by the time I make it to the Earthquake. Their Jellicent shouldn't have much energy, so I'm going to farm up. I wait the turn, it's the Jellicent. I can farm up a massive amount of energy and fire off this Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace picks up the KO. I can bank that Earthquake for later, send in the Golisopod to go for the Liquidation, and this game is instantly over, as the Liquidation plus the Shadow Claws will put them into EQ range. I actually make it to another Aerial Ace, so able to make multiple moves, and now, I mean, yeah, it's done. It's done, unfortunately for my opponent. There is just no way around it. The Golisopod energy was very valuable throughout the course of this game, and Gliscor just, again, very, very solid as a whole. We get our first really tough lead here, leading the Golisopod into the Greedent. If it's a Greedent lead, I'll often safe switch into the Gliscor. More often than not, if I'm switching out, I'm switching into Greedent. But that's the nice thing about Golisopod, is Golisopod is going to win most leads because it's a really good core breaker into the Annihilate for Alligator teams. And granted, I haven't even really been seeing a lot of the Annihilate for Alligator teams, and this team is still winning, even when it's not seeing the teams that I'm kind of wanting to target. I land the Quake, and that means that this is just strictly a winning matchup for the Gliscor. It's always good for Gliscor, but if Greedent shields a Quake, it gets uncomfortable. They snipe with Dragalge, and speaking of uncomfortable, I'm going to bring in Golisopod. But Aerial Aces are going to do absolutely nothing here. And here is where I have to make a little bit of an honest admission. I have no idea what Dragalge counts are. I ended up looking them up after the fact, so I'm aware now, but I had no idea what the Dragalge counts are. So you may notice me shield a move that I don't have to shield here very shortly. So I shield up the Aqua Tail, and then I was thinking, oh no, they have the Outrage. Looking back on it, I'm pretty sure they don't. It's just an Aqua Tail. So that's a terrible shield by me. And it's just an example of knowing the counts is really important, because I wouldn't have had to shield that if I was aware of the energy. So now I'm down 2 shields. They bring in Greedent. Due to my many misplays in this game, unless Greedent has a massive type advantage in the back, I've completely thrown it. And guess what? It's like the one mon that Greedent could actually beat in the back. It's going to be a Jellicent. They shield the first crunch as well, and they get debuffed. That's why you never shield the first crunch. Now this is going to do like half their HP, and I get another crunch debuff. I have never had crunch debuff luck like this. The one unfortunate thing is that I didn't actually need these crunch debuffs to win the game. I would have still been fine because Greedent just has a dominant matchup here. But this game would have been not even remotely close. As I get a third crunch debuff, I switch out, I catch, but it wouldn't have been even remotely close if I had just played better, knew Dragalge counts, and didn't shield a bait move when Dragalge couldn't have even had an Outrage. The Aerial Ace is going to KO. They can bring in the Jellicent. Jellicent not going to be able to Hex down before I can make the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace just does not KO, but my Greedent is not in range where a Surf knocks out. And this match has been going on for so long, the match timer starts to count down. Man, that game was an absolute disaster for me in terms of execution, but the team is strong enough that we're still able to get that win. Tough lead in the next match, Golisopod versus Charizard. Saw a lot of fire flying types. Interestingly enough here, they go for the Dragon Claw. Throwing the Dragon Claw here is going to deny me a full sneak, so they're always going to be one wing attack ahead. However, knowing it's just a Dragon Claw, I don't have to shield that. So I honestly think it would have been more worth it for my opponent to actually overfarm, make it to the Blast Burn, concede being up a move in exchange for actually being able to threaten a shield. Because I'm more than happy to tank Dragon Claws. They're going to try for a farm down here. I make the Aerial Ace. I'm on 1 HP. If I shield, I get KO'd through the shield, so I have to let that go and bring in Golisopod. They make a move. At this point, I had lost count, so I end up shielding, thinking it's a Blast Burn, but they were short. It's just a Dragon Claw. But in the back, they send out Virizion, and if Virizion is what you're bringing into an energy lead Golisopod, you are completely core broken in the back. This has to be like double fighter or something like that. That's the only reason you voluntarily bring Virizion into a Golisopod. I fire off this Aerial Ace. They have to shield or they will get KO'd, and they're going to do exactly that. Leaf Blade will pressure my final shield. I can now throw 4 Shadow Claws and my Aerial Ace if they stay in. They're going to farm up. They switch out, and it's Poliwrath in the back. If it's the Shadow, I can basically 2-shot with Aerial Aces. But as it turns out, it's the regular, and that's actually a little bit more difficult because 2 Aerial Aces will not come close to KOing. I really don't want to get farmed down here, so I'm going to switch out and send in the Greedent. And the nice thing is Poliwrath can't really threaten here. In the Ultra League, they're all on Scald and Icy Wind, so I can make it to the Body Slam. Body Slam is going to be able to KO, and I have a little bit of health remaining on Golisopod. Their Virizion is extremely low, so they're just going to resign the match. Hopping into the final match, all good win streaks must come to an end, so let's see where the win streak ended. Golisopod versus Skeledirge, great lead for me. I'm going to strike first with the Liquidation. This does not KO, but it does a ton of damage. They throw an Incinerate, leaving exactly 1 moment when they can throw the Shadow Ball, so I may as well catch it onto Greedent. And now we preserve our entire Golisopod. Out comes Annihilate. Annihilate very good at shutting down Greedent save switches, but catching that Shadow Ball still makes it very worth it for me. Greedent making it to crunch number 2. After that previous game where I had 3 crunch debuffs in a row, my crunch luck is definitely going to be gone. So I have no hope of being able to get a crunch debuff. Very nice counting by them. They're going to fire off the Night Slash on charge attack priority. I could decide to send in the Golisopod, but I'm going to bring in the Gliscor. They can bait and make a Shadow Ball, so I'm going to predict that play. I no shield the Night Slash, and I get it right. That is absolutely massive. I'm going to shield. There it is. There's that Shadow Ball. In the back, they have Ampharos, and this is tricky. I click the Earthquake, hoping they call the bait. They shield, and suddenly, this is actually a losing endgame for me. Had I baited with the Aerial Ace, I would have been fine, but I didn't. I full sent, and my opponent got the shield call right. I'm going to fire off the Liquidation. If Liquidation does enough to put them into Aerial Ace range, and it does, maybe there's a shot. But I still have to survive a Brutal Swing, and unfortunately, it looks like I got denied there on Bring In. The denial won't matter if I can't survive a Brutal Swing, though. They're going to fire off the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing, I survive it, but I'm not healthy enough. I need to live this Volt Switch to get the second Aerial Ace off, but I do not survive it. If I baited the Ampharos earlier, that game could have been a win, but unfortunately, I full sent. They got the shield call right, and that game, which was winnable, ends up being a loss. All in all, I had a ton of fun running this team. I did end up cutting out a couple battles from the win streak purely just for time's sake because Open Ultra League battles are very, very lengthy. But yeah, I started off with an 8-0 stretch with the team, ended up losing that one, and then I ended up winning a couple more after that as well. So I think if you're looking to climb in the Ultra League, this is a really, really strong team. The Gliscor has some very nice core break potential. Greedent is just the ultimate generalist in this format. And then Golisopod as well is just an amazing core breaker. I didn't even end up seeing very many Feraligators, and I only saw a couple Annihilate. But if you're seeing a lot of those, which I know most people are because they're very, very common in this meta, Golisopod is just an incredibly good core breaker for those. I a little bit soured on Golisopod with how strong Greedent was, but I think having your own Greedent and then a mon that can beat Greedent in the back can really allow Golisopod to shine. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.